Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 1, Episode 4, Memento Mori. This video is part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, so I have to start with a spoiler warning for Strange New Worlds up to Season 1, Episode 4. If you have not seen this episode yet, you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. So, as I was watching this episode, I was trying to think of what episode this reminded me of because I got really strong vibes of it reminding me of another Star Trek episode. At first I was thinking Balance of Terror because it has that kind of, silent cat and mouse submarine type feel to it. And then I was thinking of Disaster, that TNG episode where everyone was stuck in different parts of the ship. Particularly when it comes to the storyline with Uhura and Himmer being stuck in the cargo bay reminded me a lot of when Geordi and Crusher were stuck in the cargo bay in that episode. But the more I thought of it, the more I realized that the episode this most reminded me of was the Deep Space Nine episode Starship Down, which is kind of a combination of Disaster and Balance of Terror, which is what this episode is. And in fact, it reminded me is very similar to Starship Down, because in Starship Down, the Defiant was stuck in a gas giant and plumbing in the gas giant, and then there were different parts of the crew who were stuck in different parts of the ship. Like Cisco got injured and Kira was caring for him on the bridge while Worf took a command of the Defiant in main engineering, and then Bashir and Dax were stuck in a different part of the ship. And in the meanwhile, the Jem'Hadar ships were trying to hunt down and destroy the Defiant while the Defiant was hiding in the gas giant and was trying to use the elements of the gas giant to go deeper, which would compromise its structural integrity. So you see how it sounds very, very similar to this episode. Now, I'm not saying that is a bad thing. I don't mind when Star Trek emulates itself unless it does it too obviously, like the way Enterprise would do. Enterprise would just do carbon copies of other Star Trek episodes, which really pissed me off. It did it, I think, 3 times. It did with the episode Oasis that just ripped off that DS9 episode Shadow Play, and then it did it again with E2 or E squared, which ripped off the Deep Space Nine episode Children of Time. And I thought there was, it did it with Doctor's Orders, which was just a rip off of the Voyager episode 1. Now, I don't think, as I said, I think there are many examples though when Star Trek emulates itself, but it does it in a way that isn't so contrived and obvious and not just a carbon copy, and then becomes more like a nice sort of homage but putting a different spin on it. Like one of my favorite examples is my favorite episode of Enterprise, Damage, which kind of is a combination of In the Pale Moonlight and Year of Hell, also 2 of my favorite episodes in the Trek franchise. And so they combine those to make something original, which I love. And so this is kind of more like that. So I think this episode, in fact, I would be as bold to say that this episode is better than Starship Down, because I wasn't actually a huge fan of Starship Down, because on some of the side plots, like Kira reading, hymns or whatever, telling lore of Bajoran folk stories to Cisco, who's suffering, and I didn't find that interesting. I didn't really find Bashir and Jadzia's interactions interesting either, and Quark had this stupid betting thing with this alien, which I thought was dumb, and Worf was commanding the ship from engineering, having to placate these engineers who couldn't deal with this style of command, so ultimately I didn't really care for that episode. Where this one I thought had a lot stronger character stories, and so I think this is a better episode, to be honest. Yes, that makes it even better that they emulate a Trek episode, because they do a better job at it than the original episode that did it. So I'm all for that. I got no issues with it. In fact, I would say this was a much more intense episode. Like I was more on the edge of my seat. It was a pretty strong character story for Leon. They're continuing to do different character stories for each episode, focusing on different characters, which I love. I do wonder when they're going to get to Ortegas, though. That's the character I feel like I know the least about, although I do enjoy her quirky sense of humor, which we got a bit of in this episode. Like, such as when she was telling Pike, she's like, didn't your science officer just say that doing that would crush the ship? when he gave her an order to go deeper into the star. And it's just that chemistry of the crew is still really working for me. The camaraderie of the crew, I think, is better than any new Trek show, Discovery, Picard. Maybe even, I would dare say, even more so than Lower Decks, and even more so than Enterprise, because those characters are pretty flat. So it's reminding me more of what I think of as the core of Trek, my favorite Trek, TNG, DS9, Voyager, and yes. And it's funny because it emulates TOS the most. However, TOS was just a Kirk, Spock, and McCoy show. All the other characters are cardboard cutouts. With this show's format is more like TNG, DS9, and Voyager, where the whole crew is a good ensemble, which is what I want from Star Trek. Yes, it was kind of like Starship Down in Disaster, because you had Uhura and Himmer trapped in the cargo bay. You had Una, who was so severely injured in sick bay, and they had the storyline with Umbaga and Chapel trying to do triage, and it gave a nice little flavor to the whole storyline that it really humanized the danger that they were in, which made the suspense of the main plot just that much more powerful. And plus, I love all these characters, to be honest, except for maybe Chapel. But like, I love Omega and his just whenever he appeared, he just feels like a really down to earth doctor. And the character story between Uhura and Himmer, where Himmer grows to appreciate her more, that worked for me as well, and I liked how they tied their situation into the end of the plot, where Pike uses that in order to defeat the Gorn. I think this is a powerful episode, and of course Leon, or Laan, I think you say her name, how she was haunted by the memory of her dead brother, and we were first introduced, to this several episodes ago, how she was traumatized by the Gorn. And so this brought back a lot of those memories. Now, I will say I did feel like the whole theme of like Remembrance Day, or whatever they called it, where they all wore pins of the ships they served on before they remember those has fallen. That felt kind of hand-fisted, and to be honest, and it felt like when I first saw it, felt out of place, but when they tied it into the main story, it felt a bit like plot convenience, like how she refused to wear the pin, and at the end of the episode she wore the pin. I don't know, that didn't quite work for me. It felt a bit contrived, if I'm gonna be honest. I mean, the concept of it is not much different than something like Memorial Day, so it is realistic, but I don't know. It didn't really quite work for me. Another beat that I like in this episode is when earlier in the episode they have a conference, and Laan kind of spells out like how fearsome the Gorn are, how they just keep coming for you, and which is important information to have, but she says it in such a way that inspires fear. It gives the sense of we're fucked. And so Pike has a little talk with her afterwards, saying like, we need to embrace hope. Like, it's important to be realism, but we also need to embrace hope. And she says, well, isn't it important to tell the truth? And he's like, well, hope can spring from the truth, and it's always better when it does. And then later in the episode, you see that she is like backing him up, because you see when Pike comes up with these crazy, insane, dangerous plans, he has like the utmost confidence in them. And then you see La'an starts to also display that confidence. She's like, this is what we need to do to save the ship. And it's very clear that Pike doesn't actually have that confidence that he's showing, but he needs to show that confidence in order to inspire hope. And that La'an picks up on that and starts doing the same thing, which is really great character beat. And also, even though Pike might not have all the confidence that he's showing, that plan that he comes up with is clearly their best shot, their only option. So even though it's a flimsy plan, it's all they got, and it doesn't serve the crew any purpose to be like, well, we're fucked either way, so let's just do this. That's not very inspiring. You have to be like, this is going to work. It will work. The Enterprise structure will hold. That's the kind, you need to have that confidence, because that is their best option. That's the only option they can go with, and therefore it doesn't serve any purpose to doubt it. You have to have confidence in it and inspire the crew, and that will show them do their best. And I love how this episode portrayed that. I thought it did an absolutely amazing job. And there are other like really powerful beats in this episode, such as when the Pike brought them further down into the dwarf, which calls the lower decks. Poor lower deckers. I thought of the old lower deckers, Boimler, when they said the lower decks were the ones being crushed. But anyway, they had to evacuate the lower decks, but not everyone was out in time, and that they had to seal it in order, otherwise they could lose the entire ship, which is something we've seen in Trek before. But it led to this amazing moment where Kyle was dragging an injured crew member, and the injured crew member could see that they both weren't going to make it, so he shoves Kyle to the other side so he can at least save Kyle's life. So he sacrifices himself, because from his perspective, there's no point in both of them dying, that Kyle should at least live, which was very touching, very powerful, and you see how this affected Kyle as well. Now this is, again, we've seen other stuff like that in Star Trek. I'm thinking particularly of the episode Year of Hell, where the Doctor had to seal the airlock, whatever, and leave a couple people to die, but it doesn't make it any less powerful. It was still really powerful, really amazing. And again, all of this just adds to the whole flavor. It adds to the stakes. This is why I feel like this episode's way better than something like Starship Down or even Disaster, because you feel the stakes a lot more. You can sense the tension. And this game of cat and mouse that Pike is playing with the Gorn. And then, of course, you get the other beat with number one, where she has this plasma as the last supply, and she needs it to live, but she refuses to take it because there's another crew member who needs it. And again, that's powerful stuff, because usually they're like, screw the red shirts. The writers, not the crew, but the writers like, screw the red shirts. But this time, they had the crew stand up and be like, no, I will not live because of someone else dying just because I have a higher rank or I'm a main cast member of the show. And so she refuses to take it, and then Vega himself donates blood in order to save her life. Again, showing the sort of camaraderie that the crew have. So, ultimately, yeah, really, really powerful stuff. Now, let me get into the Gorn for a bit, because I'm not going to be a canon hog here, because I don't really care too much, because the Gorn has barely appeared in Star Trek. Canonically, they've only appeared in the episode Arena from the original series, and in the Mirror Universe, which isn't even our universe, in the episode In the Mirror Darkly in Enterprise. Now, they have their name has been thrown out a lot before, in Strange New Worlds, but also in other Trek shows. Not as much as the Tholians. I feel like they throw the Tholians' name out a lot more than they do the Gorn. But I'm sure their name's been tossed around a couple times throughout Trek history. But those two episodes are the only times that we actually seen them. I mean, of course, there's a lot of B canon involving them, but those are the only two times. So their portrayal doesn't entirely match up with how they've been portrayed in the arena. Like in the Mirror Darkly, it doesn't matter because that's the Mirror Universe, and they didn't really establish the Gorn. You just saw this one bounty hunter or whatever going around the ship. So Kirk didn't know who the Gorn were. He never heard that word before. And again, that's fine. I don't care. Here they try to pass it up as no one's ever seen a Gorn before and lived to tell the tale. So they know of them and they know of their ships, but they've never actually seen them before, which again is still inconsistent with TNG because Kirk had never heard of the Gorn. Although you could argue that maybe other people in Starfleet heard of them, it's just he hasn't, but whatever. It's quibbles, and ultimately I don't care. Let me underline that before you get upset. I don't care that this breaks canon, but it does. But who cares? Like, it doesn't bother me. I'm just pointing it out. Because it doesn't break in a way that I feel like... When I get upset about canon breaks, because it's in a way where I feel like it's bad writing, because the writers purposely ignore previous Trek because it's inconvenient for them. Whereas, especially when we get into canon in the original series, because the original series, of course, didn't know they were building an entire universe, and so I am much more forgiving in them bending or breaking that, because it's almost virtually impossible to withhold that, because they were just making a TV show in the 60s 1 week at a time. They weren't trying to build a tangible, livable universe like later Trek shows were. So, and also, if it's something minor, it doesn't like the thing about no one seeing the Gorn, I don't really care. That's not that big of a deal. Saying that Seven of Nine's parents were investigating the Borg 10 years before Starfleet even heard of the Borg, now that pisses me the fuck off, because that's more contemporary thing, defying more contemporary thing, and for no good reason, just because the writers are lazy and bad. I think it is bad writing. I've heard someone else say, oh, I praise writers for ignoring canon. Why? You praise bad writing because they're just something in the past is inconvenient for them, so they ignore it. That's bad writing, my friend. But this, I'm sorry, I'm ranting about Voyager. This doesn't have anything to do with this episode because it doesn't bother me here. This isn't bad writing, to be clear. This is fine. Who cares? But anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, the Gorn. So the way they portray the Gorn in this episode makes them come off more like the Herodian to me. Like, they're all like, because in the episode Arena, the point of the episode, which I didn't really buy, but a lot of other people who watch that episode tend to buy, was that they were just misunderstood, and the Gorn were just protecting themselves because they saw Starfleet or the Federation as invaders, and they thought that Starfleet was the aggressive force, so they were defending themselves. And at the end, Kirk can come to like an understanding with the Gorn, and he tells the Metron that he's going to try to ease relations with them. Where here, they completely changed that, because the Gorn know exactly who the humans are, and they treat them as meat, as something to be hunted. So they come off more as the Herodian from Voyager, where they're like hunters who hunt lesser prey. So that's kind of a retcon. But again, the Gorn aren't really that established. It doesn't really bother me that much, especially since it has I said this canon that they're going off of is 60 years old or whatever. So I don't really care as much about that. Not like it happened 2 years ago like fucking Voyager did. But anyway, not getting into that. So, yeah, and so they are coming off more as the Herodian than someone who was misunderstood. But anyway, as I said, I disagreed with people who tried to say in the Arena the Gorn were just misunderstood. They were aggressive. They weren't just misunderstood. But here, they take that to a whole new level. Like, they are super, super aggressive and see humans as like lesser species that are there to be food and to be hunted. Again, more like Herodian. But anyway, it does make me wonder if Strange New Worlds is setting the Gorn up to be their main adversary. Like, every Trek show has a lot of adversaries, but it has a main one that occurs more often than not. Like, the original series had the Klingons, Next Generation had the Romulans, Deep Space Nine had the Cardassians, Voyager, first couple seasons of Kazon, and later it was the Borg, and Enterprise, first couple seasons of Suliban, and later it was the Xindi. So, yeah, each show, and I wonder if they're doing that for the Gorn, if they're setting the Gorn up to be the reoccurring villain. And if they do, we need to see one. Like, I'm fine with them not showing one in this episode and just seeing their ships, but if they're gonna be occurring a lot more frequently, we need to fucking see them. The actual, Gorn, not just their ships. But, we'll see. As I said, for this episode, it's fine and we didn't see them, and actually makes it a bit more sort of... we do kind of learn their tactics, though. We know that they're intelligent and that they're very smart, and they have specific tactics to... trick the Enterprise. Like, they waited for the Enterprise to dock with the cargo ship before they attacked, and then they sacrificed one of their ships and let the Enterprise destroy it so they could learn their location. That was also pretty powerful and speaks to how relentless they are. But then Pike used that to his advantage because he went deeper and deeper into the Red Dwarf, and he used the fact that the Gorn would relentlessly chase after them to his advantage. Now, he didn't know for a fact that their ship would buckle from the structure pressure, and that Enterprise wouldn't, but he was betting on it. I mean, again, this is all, he only had very little chances, very little opportunity to go on, and he used the chances he's got. And this is a great Pike episode in that regard, because it shows how great of a captain he is, how he basically lucked out in this episode, let's be clear, but he came up with these brilliant strategies. Even though they were risky, they were definitely the best chance that they had surviving. They just so all happened to work out, because of course we need to have a show and we can't have all these characters die in episode 4. But anyway, yeah, so my rating for Memento Mori, out of 10, you know what, I was planning on giving this episode an 8, but I think I'll give it a 9. It'll be a weak 9, not a very strong 9, but seeing how they had all those little intricacies, all the little tiny things that all added to the tension, all added to the memory. You had character beats with Pike, you had character beats of La'an, you have character beats of Spock and bringing up the fact that he's still missing his sister. You have character beats of Una and how she's willing to sacrifice to save another crew member. You have character beats of Mbaga, how he's willing to donate his own blood to save Una. You had character beats of a side character like Kyle, seeing him where he had to watch someone die and save his life. You had a character beats of Ortega's, where she had to, do the tricky maneuvers and was a bit iffy about, Pike's plan at first, and a bit nervous and scared until La'an and Pike had to reassure her. You had character beats of, everyone. It was just a really strong tie. And Himmer and Uhura, of course, their character beats as well. So it was just a really, really tight episode, and had all these tiny details that all added to a whole. And even though you never saw the Gorn, you got the sense of they were a really destructive force that would be almost virtually impossible to defeat. Which made them powerful. Sometimes knowing less is better. The Borg! Anyway. So I think I will have to give this episode a 9. I think this may be my least favorite episode out of the four. It's either this or the first one. Probably the first one, actually. I think I like this one better than the first one. But still, like, you have an episode that's this amazing and this powerful, and it's one of my least favorites out of the first four. That's a pretty fucking good show. I gotta say, I'm like so impressed with this show so far. Yeah, so and I sort of criticize Strange New Worlds because it's an episodic show like TOS and TNG and DS9, but those shows all had like 24, 26 episodes a season, and this show only has 10 episodes in season 1, and I figure, well, that's more, having the lessest show is more important for like a serialized show. Like Discovery should have less episodes because that's way too many, because it stretches out their storyline way too thin, and same with Picard. Don't even get me started on Picard season 2. And so shows like that should have less episodes per season, but if you're going to do episodic, why not have more? But then realizing that we have 4 episodes so far and all 4 are amazing, it makes me realize why you need less episodes for an episodic show, and that's because so they can spend more time in making each episode a masterpiece. Because if you look back on shows like TOS, TNG, DS9, Voyager, yes, they had some really great episodes, but they had a lot of crap as well. A lot of mediocre and a few ones that were just awful. And that's because they had to spit out 26, 25 episodes every year, so they didn't have time to make each episode a masterpiece. They could focus on a couple ones, and a couple ones they maybe should have done more rewrites to get better, and other ones were just outright suck and only exist to fill the quota of having to have 25 episodes. So now I realize this is why you have a 10 episode season even for an episodic show, so they can craft and make each episode amazing. And so far, almost the halfway point of the season, they've fucking nailed it. They did a bang up job in each and every episode, and I only hope that this lasts until the end of the season. And I think it will, because it's a 10 episode season. Had they done like 24, 22 episodes, there would be some crap in here, inevitably. It's inevitable, it's unavoidable, but this is how the advantage of shorter seasons. But anyway, so that is it for my review of episode 4 of Strange New Worlds. Thanks so much for watching this video. I do very much appreciate it. You can check out my channel as I cover all other Star Trek stuff, gonna do a video for the animated series soon. I'm covering old episodes of Star Trek, and also covering many other shows such as Star Wars Rebels, Better Call Saul, The Expanse, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all that. And thanks a lot for watching.